everyone. I'm Nicole Mowry, and I'm going to talk to you about my final project, which looks nothing like the final I proposed. Originally, I was going to paint my grandmother and my sister, probably in the style of week 2, where we did our self portraits. However, I have been also catching up on my late work, and the more projects I've done, the more I realized my final project needed to be something I found fun. It's been a bit of a slog the last couple days getting through everything, so I decided to go back to what I love doing, which is drawing characters, creating them, designing them, and basically just coming up with someone from scratch from my head. Um, I originally came up with this character from scratch, though she's been kicking around for about 6 to 7 years now. She's a Dungeons and Dragons character that I designed while we were making all of our character sheets, because if I don't know what my characters look like, how am I supposed to play them? So, her character is a half-elf cleric. She's really good against undead, which is why I wanted to put her in sort of a dungeon-y scene, because you usually find zombies and undead inside dungeons and not just wandering around hillsides, in fantasy most of the time anyway. So I wanted to put her in a dungeon. I wanted her to have her characteristic morning star, but she's also a holy caster, so that's what the fire coming out of her hand is. I wanted it to represent the symbol of the deity that she'd chosen, whose name I do not remember. So that's a little bit into the character that I chose, and now I'm going to talk to you about how I made her. To start out with, I was running on a tight schedule, so I went to the all-powerful Google, and I asked Google to show me different poses that I could choose for my character. I searched for a bit, and then I found one that I really liked. It looked strong, powerful, centered, and I decided to choose that one. So I grabbed it into my computer, and I used it as reference while I drew her skeleton, and I drew her out into her position. After that, I sketched clothes on her on a second layer. Everything is different layers. So it's the skeleton, her body, clothes, and then I squished them all together, and then I did the lining, which was with the brush tool. I used hard round. I use hard round a lot, I said in another video. It's one of my favorite brushes. And after I had her lines done, I was able to start coloring. The way I color is I do each of the colors on a different layer. So there's, I call them flats. So there's skin flats, hair flats. I believe I did 4 different colors of leather. There was a teal. There was a ebony. I looked up ebony for the color of her staff. Almost everything needed references. I had the design of her outfit sort of figured out to begin with, but I needed to know what a morning star looked like. I needed to know what I wanted boots to look like. I looked up Viking hair for her hair because I wanted to update her hairstyle. And so it was a combination of reference gathering and observational drawing combined with drawing from my head. Once I had her flat colors down, I started coloring. I tried to do multiply shades with grays on this particular piece. And so how I did that was I put a shade layer underneath all of the flat color layers, and I squished all the flat color layers together. I flattened them, and I put those on multiply. So when I drew the grays on her, it went underneath, but you could still see it. Too much gray, and it started getting a little too gray, so I went in layers. And after I had the shades done, I added some highlights, and then I realized she was looking a little empty. Her hand was clutching nothing, and so I added magic. But magic glows, and so that changed the light source entirely. So I ended up moving the light source a little bit with blue highlights and I shaded the side on a different shade layer. And so she's got this sort of pop from the blue magic in her hand that glows and then hits her body, which was a combination of brush tool and dodge tool. Dodge was on midtones and highlights. I did two different versions of that. And then after I dodged and highlighted that, I realized she was in a white room with nothing, and I wanted her in a dungeon. So I found a picture of a rock wall, and I made it on the back, but then I took the mixing brush from Exercise 2, which I'd actually never known about before, and so I'm still really enamored of that. And then I scratched over all the rocks just to make them their own sort of painting. Did a dark brown background for that, and made the floor out of just brown and two filters, I believe, Crackler, and another one I can't remember at all. I'm not sitting in front of my computer, so I can't really look. But overall, I think the piece is successful. I think, like everything I do, that I'd want to put another 30 hours into her color, which would make her a lot more complete. But I like the drawing. I like the way the shades came out, mainly. And I think that I ended up using a lot of techniques from the class, which was interesting to me. Because I'm not used to changing how I use Photoshop, but I used a lot of things I hadn't used before, like the mixer brush, and I used a little bit of Quick Mask. I forgot to mention that before. And just various techniques that I'd never heard of. So overall, I call that a successful class. I learned new things, and I hope you all have a great summer.